Today we're going to talk about pre-employment testing. Through research, we have established that some examples of testing used today are job knowledge tests, proficiency tests, aptitude tests, work sample tests, dexterity tests, and drug testing. There are numerous tests used to help determine an applicant's suitability for a position. They are used to ensure that the right persons are matched to the right positions. Additional testing can be administered under certain circumstances after a conditional offer of employment is done. They are the medical exams, physical abilities test, personality and psychological tests that measure your personality traits. Interviews may not ask about disability or medically related questions at the pre-offer stage of the selection process. Some of the HR practices that are used for pre-employment testing are selection and training. And just to let you know that pre-employment testing, there is cost involved in it. One of them is with the background check. It's $50 for a very thorough background check. And then we also, it's $45 for a drug test. And that is some information on pre-employment testing.
Hi, I'm Mason Dukacek, Employment Assessment and Pre-Employment Testing Expert. My ideas and strategies for helping employers hire right the first time and get the most from their existing staff has been featured in places like Selling Power Magazine, the New York Times, and Entrepreneur Magazine. Here's a question for you. Can you get sued for using pre-employment tests? The answer is, of course. You can get sued for anything. Just ask McDonald's who got sued for making their coffee too hot. However, if you administer employment tests and psychometric tests properly as part of a consistent and fair job-related process, you're likely to strengthen your case against frivolous lawsuits and charges and get the right people in the right positions the first time too. When your employee selection process examines job-related traits, treats all applicants fairly and consistently, and uses assessments as one portion of a bigger picture instead of the sole reason for a hire or no hire decision, then your risks of being successfully sued can be minimized significantly. Besides, the best employment tests and psychometric tests are also computer scored. And because computers don't look at an applicant and determine if they're black, white, purple, male, female, or Martian, or even if they're young or old, they can eliminate some opportunities for bias completely. Using pre-employment testing and employment assessment strategies won't solve every one of your business challenges, but they sure can help with a lot of them.
As just stated in the video, choosing the correct pre-employment test is vital in the hiring process. A company has many different tests to choose from, and some of these can include attitude, personality, and intelligence tests. It all depends upon the job and the position. One example of choosing the correct test includes the Duke Power versus Griggs case. This is a case in North Carolina where the power company discriminated against blacks, which was the majority of their labor department. At first, the company required a high school diploma in order to move from one part of the company to another. However, many blacks did not have their high school diploma. Later that same year, Duke Power began allowing non-high school graduates to transfer from the labor departments to other departments. However, they had to pass 2 tests in order to do this. The first test related to general mental ability, and the other predicted job performance. However, these test scores fared greater for whites compared to blacks, and many blacks could not pass the test. Therefore, the blacks were discriminated against and had a disadvantage of advancement in the company. So this case shows the importance of pre-employment tests and choosing ones that are applicable to the position. Another common form of these tests include drug tests, and the video that we're going to show you next stresses the importance of doing drug tests before hiring.
Out a perfectly good year. Look at that check guy on your side.
I love that smell.
There we go.
That's the smell of you all getting fired.
What? Fired? What?
Welcome to your first random drug test.
I'll need you to fill these cups.
Go make tinkle, or it's your job.
I don't have to write a test to tell you that I take drugs.
Pigpen, you go to the bathroom in the cup.
Okay. Jeez, way too into this.
Drink up half pint.
They might be using drugs to stay alert or to relieve stress during long, lonely trips. Whatever the reason, drug abuse by truck drivers has led to strict drug testing programs throughout the industry. But a Fox Chicago investigation suggests many companies and their drivers have yet to get the message. Our Larry Yellen has our story.
Almost every driver has felt the fear. You're in control, but what about that big semi in the rear view mirror?
All of a sudden we just heard a big smash and I looked through my mirror and I seen that semi just sliding.
Sliding, then crashing into 22 cars at the Chicago Skyway Toll Plaza. As seen in this never-before-aired video, an 80,000-pound truck veers right, then jackknifes and crashes, causing multiple injuries.
Some cars were underneath the semis. I was just glad that we just got out.
The trucker had fallen asleep and later tested positive for cocaine. The company that employed him had a history of failing to conduct the required drug tests.
It is their responsibility to have active and regular drug testing programs ongoing at all times. Trucking companies are playing Russian roulette with us.
A Fox Chicago News investigation found that in the last 4 years, the federal government fined 120 Illinois trucking companies for not doing random drug tests. Another 55 companies failed to test newly hired drivers. 14 companies failed to make sure that drivers were tested for drugs after serious accidents. And 9 companies put drivers on the road even though they had flunked their drug tests.
This is a safety epidemic that no one really understands.
Michigan attorney Steve Gersten specializes in trucking cases. He says truckers and their bosses would rather pay a small fine for skipping a drug test after an accident than pay a multi-million-dollar verdict if the driver gets tested and turns out to be high. So drivers, he says, sometimes avoid their post-accident drug tests by just making sure they can't be found.
It's not uncommon for you to see the drivers just having disappeared for several days.
I see it happen all the time. I see it happen in case after case, and it's always the same story. They always say I was too upset by the truck accident. I had to go be consoled.
Well, I remember nothing but a big bang and lights out.
Rich Donovan, an IDOT Minuteman, suffered severe leg and chest injuries when a poultry delivery truck swerved onto the shoulder of the Dan Ryan. Donovan was helping a motorist change a flat tire.
There's a lot of things that I just can't do that I used to do, and I'm 44 years old.
The trucker testified that he had no idea he was supposed to submit to a drug test after the accident, which occurred on a Saturday afternoon. And so,
he was back on the road on Monday. Yes.
Working for another company. Paul O'Toole represents Rich Donovan.
It is in the best interest of a driver who knows that he's ingested marijuana or cocaine or beer not to get tested. So it's really the fox watching the hen house.
When the trucker was finally tested 2 days later, he tested positive for cocaine and marijuana. But here's the twist. He claimed he used the drugs on the night after the accident, not before.
He basically contaminated the evidence, making it difficult to trace it back to the occurrence.
Trucking industry says examples of such misconduct are very rare, and that everyday drivers are far more likely to be on drugs or alcohol than truckers.
Look what they're carrying on the road.
That's why we said there should be zero tolerance for that. But it's like any profession. There are those people that we have to weed out. We have to make it more difficult for them to move from one job to another if they have a problem with drugs or alcohol.
On that point, Rich Donovan agrees.
That's got to be stopped. People driving 18,000 or 40,000 or 80,000 pound trucks on drugs. That's crazy.
Attorneys for the trucking company and the truck driver involved in Donovan's accident told us they would not comment on a pending case. Donovan told me there was nothing he loved more than his IDOT job. He hasn't been able to go back to work, but he still listens to IDOT's radio transmissions to find out what's happening on the highways. Robin and Jeff?
So to keep this part of what's happening, people going from job to job, running basically from their bad record or their bad drug test, what can we do?
Well, even the trucking associations say that there is an easy solution, and that solution would be some sort of national database where everyone who is tested positive, it goes into that national data bank, and then you can check when somebody applies for a job whether they have failed at another company before applying at your company. The problem seems to be smaller companies. The big companies do the job and do the drug test, but most trucking companies are smaller companies, and they're not, and many of them are not doing them.
And they're not linked. All right. Thanks so much, Larry.
Brockton are breaking the law, and some say putting students at risk, forgetting to conduct required background checks on hundreds of teachers. News Center 5's Jorge Quiroga is live in Brockton tonight. So, Jorge, how did it happen?
Well, the explanation is not really very good. Now, when parents drop off their kids at the school door, they certainly expect that they will be in safe hands. Well, now we're learning that here in Brockton, criminal background checks that were supposed to be updated some 15 months ago were never done.
The head of Brockton Schools blames human error.
All employees have been queried. That is not a false statement. What is a false statement is that they were all done within the 3-year window.
As required by law, parents, they say it's inexcusable.
We're trusting them that every person, employee that they let in there, anyone that's associated with the school or comes into that school is checked properly.
Turns out criminal background updates, so-called Corys for hundreds of school employees that were due in January 2010 were not done.
How do you account for this lapse?
I have no excuse. There's been a human error made here.
On top of the errors admitted when the department failed to run background checks on some tutors. A mistake revealed after Kevin Tressler, a Stonehill College student, was charged with raping an elementary school girl.
I was angry, I was disappointed, and quite frankly, I was devastated.
After being reassured just last week, the system was in compliance.
Something went terribly wrong.
Grilled by the school committee, the superintendent pledged an updated computerized system won't let this happen again.
I've uncovered this. I've addressed it by we're coring everyone now.
You trust that you hire professional people and that they get the things done that are needed.
Now, Dr. Malone says this is a problem he inherited when he took the job 18 months ago. He says since that incident last month, all tutors have been rechecked, all coming back clean. He says it'll take 6 to 8 weeks to run new Corys on all other employees, from teachers and janitors to bus drivers and school committee members. Reporting live from Brockton, Jorge Quiroga, News Center 5.
Overall, as you've seen throughout our video, pre-employment testing can be beneficial to a company in many ways. Avoiding negligent hiring, protecting your current employees, and even choosing the right employees the first time around are just a few of the main ways pre-employment testing can help make any company more efficient. As companies enter and exit the business world, the constant necessity of pre-employment testing will tie companies together and even help create a safer and more efficient workplace for all employees involved. Pre-employment testing may just seem like a simple cornerstone in the foundation of a business. However, human resource management has demonstrated to us the importance of proper planning and also the importance of strategic management. These two concepts in human resource management help move pre-employment testing from a simple cornerstone in a business plan to a main concern in the foundation of a successful business. So on behalf of my group and myself, we would like to thank you for taking the time to learn more about pre-employment testing and also for watching our video. Thank you.